whatever we're facing now becomes compounded for a newcomer, right? Because they don't have all of that same equity maybe that we built in, or they don't have all of the same social connections that we do. They don't have that same comfort of calling this their home yet. They're still trying to build it into their home. So it can be really, really isolating, and it can be really, really depressing.
Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Today I'm speaking with Anila Lee Yuen. She's the CEO of the Centre for Newcomers in Calgary, and she's helped thousands of people settle in Canada over the course of her career. Today we're talking about misconceptions and challenges that newcomers face as they're settling here in Canada and trying to build a new life. And we also talk about ways that we can help. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Anila. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, Tamara.
So I'm really looking forward to this conversation about newcomers, welcoming, immigrants and refugees to Canada. But before we dig into it, maybe we should start with what it is you do to help newcomers.
Yes, absolutely. So I am the President and Chief Executive Officer at the Centre for Newcomers. We are a relatively large not-for-profit charity in the city and in the province. We are what is called a settlement agency. So a settlement agency, there are thousands of them across Canada, and we are predominantly funded by the federal government through immigration to help newcomers settle into the region that they choose. So immigrants can be defined as people that are economic class, so they have a skill set that we require. They always speak English or French fluently. Their family members is the next grouping. And then also, of course, refugees. So people that have been displaced around the world due to a number of different reasons, war or climate or trauma or whatever else is going on in the world, right? And so we help them with everything related to, so if they are family class or refugee and they don't speak English, we can help them with their English language learning. We help them with everything related to if they're looking for a job, if they're looking for any kind of assistance in terms of just how to get along, what to do, help them with their socialization, introduce them to Canadians, introduce them to Calgarians, get them volunteering, different things like that. So for example, it could be as simple as, we've got somebody who speaks Spanish and they are Catholic and they want to know which the closest church is to them, the Catholic church, that has a Spanish sermon that they could be able to go to on Sundays. So it could be anything as simple as that to things that are much more difficult. So we have a vulnerable populations program. And in that, we will work with people that have gone through war trauma, that have been, tortured, that have had all kinds of issues. We work with people that are LGBT plus and have been persecuted. We work with women and families through family violence. So all kinds of supports are available.
Wow, that's a big job. And you're in Calgary, and you said that organizations like yours are right across this country helping people settle and get into routines and meet people and feel at home, really, right?
Yes. So whether you're an immigrant and you chose to come here, or whether you're a refugee and, you didn't really have a choice, you needed to leave your home country, our job really is to work with the community. So people like, yourself, I'm making an assumption, yourself and myself, born and raised in Canada, right? And other people that have been here for a very long time and settled here, to help us learn how to welcome newcomers and also to have newcomers feel safe and welcome here as well.
So, I've noticed lately, I think it's always there, but I've noticed it more so lately because housing is such an issue in Canada. It is everywhere. We're not unique for sure. But, we have a housing problem. And I've noticed that there's some discourse where people like to blame that on immigration. And I'm like, well, how can you blame it on immigration when, so is this something that you are, I know you have thoughts on this, so maybe we can talk through that. Is immigration to blame for our housing challenges in this country?
Well, the short answer is absolutely not, right? I don't want to pull blame on anyone. I think, there's been a series of different things that have happened, including COVID, right, that have caused delays in a lot of work that should have happened. There's been, our inflation and just the way the economy is globally, and supply chains and everything that have also, caused issues and problems. So, we're really just in a big, kind of a powder keg of so many different things that are happening at the same time. But really, immigration isn't one of them. And the reason I can say that is because without increasing our immigration numbers to the numbers that the federal government has done, and, we haven't seen, I've been working in settlement services now for, about 30 years. And I haven't seen any differences really in terms of, regardless of which party is in power federally, the stance on immigration is always the same. And the stance on immigration in terms of always increasing numbers is always the same, because without immigration, we don't have population growth. And without immigration, we don't have labor market growth. And without immigration, we are not going to be able to sustain our retirement funds, right? We're not going to be able to sustain any of our workers and any of our community members that are retiring out. And certainly for all of us that are still of working age, we're not going to actually get a retirement fund, even though we're paying into it. So these are all things that, immigration is 100% needed, because Canadians just don't have enough babies, right? We just, we have our 1 point whatever, child per family, and that's all we're doing. And so one of the things that we need to do is, of course, increase the amount of housing and infrastructure to be able to do that. And of course, doing so, I think, especially in a place like Calgary, we need to really look at how we can do that when we know that even though those of us living here feel like, inflation and everything and rent and mortgages, they're really sky high. In other places in Canada, they're much worse. So not only are we finding that immigrants are more likely to choose Calgary than they were 10 years ago, right? So we are the number 3 destination. And a lot of people will start off in Toronto or Vancouver and very quickly say within 6 months, whoa, no, I need to move. And they choose Calgary because they know that we still have space and we still have jobs. And it's relatively still affordable to buy a home, to purchase a home compared to other places, right? So that's why we're getting so much immigration, but we're also getting Canadian born and raised a lot of people for the same reasons that are moving, right? Before, maybe, if it was 15, 20, 30 years ago, they were moving for oil and gas. And now they may be moving for oil and gas for sure, but they're also moving because they're looking for, the ability to actually purchase a home or to actually be able to rent and have a sustainable life, right? So all of those things add up, especially for us in Calgary, in terms of what that looks like.
So can we talk a little bit about employment? Like, everything seems so hard right now, and I can't imagine coming to a new country where things are very expensive. They are. I live in Vancouver, so it's very expensive. And the stress of trying to find somewhere to live, to find a job, to find a doctor, to find all the things that you need would be so overwhelming. And I know that places like where you are help with that. But I don't think that as, Canadians, we can really understand what that's like to come to a new country, especially as a refugee, right? To leave somewhere.
So Tamara, I like to say to people, and like I said, I've been doing this for 27 years, so almost 30 years, right? And I've always said that, we think about the most foreign place in the world to you, because that's going to be different for everybody else. So imagine today you're living your life, just doing all the things that you've ever done, like drop your kids off at school, or, go to work, or make yourself breakfast, or whatever it is that you do. You leave the house, and then you find out that everybody in your house and your entire neighborhood and everybody in that entire vicinity is gone, because there was a bomb, or there was, like war and fire or whatever, or a flood, right? In Libya, there was just a flood. We have staff members that lost 80 members in the flood in Libya, right? We have staff members that have lost 40 or 50 family members in Gaza right now in Palestine, right? So these are things that are normally happening around the globe. So imagine that happens to you. You don't know whether you're, like, for me, my mother lives with me, my husband lives with me, and my dog lives with me, right? So I don't know whether any of them survived. I don't know how to get a hold of them because cell phones are down, all of those different kind of things. And then, by some miracle, I find them and we're able to get to a refugee camp. And then we get to, from there, they say to us, like, so for me, and I've been there, right? So I can say very specifically for me, China is a very foreign culture, language, environment, right? So now, out of the goodness of the heart, Chinese people have allowed me and my family to come in there, but I don't speak the language. I don't understand the culture. I don't know anything. And I still don't know what happened to the rest of my family and my friends and my colleagues and anyone else. And somehow I managed to get there. And now I'm feeling guilty because why did I get to survive, and my husband and my mom and and I didn't bring my dog. So I don't know what happened to my dog, right? And so all of these different things are you're facing. And I'm the CEO at the Centre for Newcomers here, but over there I don't speak Mandarin, and most of the jobs require Mandarin. So, but I'm a really good gardener, right? I always have, and so that's what I end up doing, right? Or I'm really good at, like I'm passable at cooking, right? So, maybe, maybe I cook, right? Or maybe, my husband has an easier time of it because he's a computer programmer, and computer programming languages are exactly the same in any language, right? In any group of it. So maybe he can do something related to that, but maybe not. And so now we're just kind of hobbling. But my mom has Parkinson's and she has brain injury. So, we don't know how to use the system and whatever else. And maybe the medical system is very different. So, it's thinking about it from that perspective of empathy around where's the most foreign place for me, and what would it feel like if all of these things happened? And this is what a refugee is going through. But the majority of newcomers to Canada aren't refugees, right? They chose to come. But even then, it's still a culture shock, especially if it's only the primary applicant that speaks English. So, saying all of that, Tamara, and imagining all of that, then you take it to the point where you and I are here, where we're born and raised Canadians, and, we've grown up here, we have our jobs here and everything else, and we go to the grocery store and we're bulking. We look at, how much the cost of apples is right now, or we look at the cost of milk or any of those kind of things, and it's really difficult for us. And then our mortgage rates or our rental rates and all of those things have also increased over the last 2 or 3 years, right? So and our jobs have not stayed, the course in terms of raises or anything like that, because of course people don't have the money to pay for raises and to keep up with that increase. So when you're looking at all of that, whatever we're facing now becomes compounded for a newcomer, right? Because they don't have all of that same equity maybe that we built in, or they don't have all of the same social connections that we do. They don't have that same comfort of calling this their home yet. They're still trying to build it into their home. So it can be really, really isolating, and it can be really, really depressing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And is the truest form of starting over when you come to a new country. And, so here's a question I have for you. When you immigrate to Canada, do you have to, are there rules? I've always heard these things. There's rules, you have to have $300,000 in the bank, or you have to have I don't know what's true or not true. You have to speak English. You have to have this. You have to have that. Are there rules?
100%. So it's always quite interesting, right? Because, our ex-mayor, Nahid Nenshi in Calgary, put it best one time, and I quote him often in saying this, is that our Canadian immigration system is one of the best bait and switches in the entire world, in the sense of we will only take the best and the brightest, right? So unless you are a refugee, right, which is only 10% of the people that are coming in. So if we have 500,000 people coming in, only 50,000 are refugees, right? So everybody else is coming in as an economic class and their families. So all of those people, almost 500,000 people that are coming in, they need to be the best and the brightest in their own home country. They have to be at a certain age, right? A workable age. Yep. So, they have to not have any health issues. They have to have the skill sets that we require, and those skill sets can change every year, every 2 years, depending on what is low in the market, right? And then they need to have a certain amount of money that they show in their bank account that is going to be there, that they are going to have to survive on, because the government will not help them with anything. So they're arriving here, and that's how they have to support themselves. So they're not getting anything at all. And when we talk about refugees, the refugees will get assistance for 1 year with their housing, with their food allowance, with all of those different kind of things. But they have to pay back at some point to the government the airfare to come. Right?
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea. What?
Yeah, so there's different kind of rules and regulations, and the thing with refugees, which I always find so resilient and so amazing, is that most refugees don't take the full year. They don't want to have the assistance. They want to be able to work on their own, and they'll say, "Stop helping me. Please give the money to somebody else that needs it. Whether it's another refugee or somebody else in Canada that needs that, I want to work," right? Because they don't want to not work. And the other thing I think that people don't realize is that very few refugees are supported by the federal government. Most refugees are supported by me and you. They are from privately sponsored groups, right? So the majority of us are either through our faith-based group, either through, our other, like our friends get together and you want to support, a refugee family. And typically you need about $50,000 so it's typically 5 different people, and $10,000 each. And then you say you're going to be responsible for, assisting them through all of their needs, through everything that they need for that entire year, helping them. So before they arrive, you've already rented the apartment for them or the house for them, right? Some of the bigger issues that we face, especially when it comes to newcomer families, is that we don't have houses that are big enough for them. And especially with our refugees, right? Often they may have 8 children, 6 children, right? Young people. And then we have all kinds of laws around safety and everything else that, no, you can't put, this many kids into one room and whatever else. So then what do we do, especially in a housing crisis, right? When these families are just grateful that they have their own place, that it's secure, that it's warm, and that they can move on with their lives and try to heal. So we have a lot of rules and regulations systemically built in that are meant for the average 1.2 child family. We're building houses and homes that are meant for that, yet it doesn't actually meet the lifestyles of the newcomers. And this is precisely, like I said earlier, why we have so many newcomers coming, because they are having more babies than we are, and we need that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so fascinating, because I know here in Vancouver, like I see all these, apartments going up and high rises, and they're small. Some of them are so small, and they're not made for families, like not even for, a couple and 1 child or 2 children. They're just so small. The other thing is when we talk about, I'll come back again to when I hear, I might be on Twitter or whatever. I know it's called X now, and you tweet about something, you ask a question, and then somebody always, and it's extremely racist, comes back and says, "Oh, that's thanks to immigration." And it's like, well, no, it's not. We can't blame everything on immigration. That's not. My concern is in, we seem to collectively as a country be doing quite poorly when it comes to our infrastructure. Where is everybody going to go to school? How are we going to have efficient hospitals again? And I just for me, I would be so scared going to any country right now because, I mean, I get that if you're a refugee, it's a totally different situation. But it's so scary even for people that were born here who can't get the services they need right now. And I do think a lot of it is from, coming out of the pandemic. I mean, COVID is still here. And we seem to have, do you get a sense in your work that we've lost you mentioned empathy. Like, have we lost some empathy when it comes to looking after each other and opening our arms and saying, come on in, like, yes, welcome. And it's going to be tough, but I'm here to help you. Like what you do for your job, right? I'm here to help you. We're your community. We're your new community.
Tamara, honestly, like when I take it out of even the immigrant sector or like the settlement sector, and I go into the broader sector that I belong to, which is the social services sector, and I'm talking to CEO colleagues that are running addiction centers and are running homeless unhoused like services and are running other kind of social services for youth in need or in crisis or whatever else. And then when I take it even outside of that and I just take it into the bigger context of like even corporate world or, just the business world, everyone is saying that we have lost a sense of empathy for each other, right? Like even at work, it's getting harder to, and I think it's because I personally believe this, and I'm sure there's a gazillion studies out there that are probably proving this, right? I haven't read them, but I personally, just from my own, anecdotal and like talking to people and seeing things and my own family and my own life and myself, I think we are highly traumatized by COVID, by the pandemic, right? I think as a society, as a globe, like, internationally, we're all highly traumatized by this like isolation and this lockdown and all of the ways things changed. And, I remember thinking and sending my team home, like 300 people home and saying, guys, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Like, it'll be fine, right? Maybe a couple of months, we're good. And it dragged on for 3 years, right? And kids can't see their grandparents and grandparents are passing away. And, and like we're seeing all these different traumas that we've all had to endure, that we couldn't go and we couldn't, like, for example, in my own family, my uncle and aunt were in Vancouver and my uncle passed away. And they sent us the video because we weren't allowed to travel and we couldn't go, right? And they sent us the video of the internment, right? The burial. And it was so surprising to me that it broke my heart that I was like, he has so many nephews and grandchildren, whether they're like married into the family, like my own husband, or my, or biological, like my brother. And who are these men that have carried him on their shoulders as a Muslim, right? Like you have the right to have your, your loved ones carry you. And I was like, and they were volunteers from the mosque because it was only my two cousins that were able to do that. And they needed 6 or something like that. Right. And I was like, who are these people? And it just broke my heart because I was like, we can't even do the proper last rites for our own uncle who is an hour flight away at typically like $150 to get there, right?
And thousands and thousands and thousands of people experience similar, right? And I don't feel like we have healed from that.
No. And so I think when we're still dealing with our own internal traumas, right? We're still dealing with our own family traumas. The number of friends and colleagues and people I know in the community that have teenagers, and the teenagers are just struggling, right? In terms of what that was like to be isolated and then going back to school and all those things. If we're still dealing with all of this for ourselves, I try to understand and have empathy for the fact that all of us have less empathy for anyone else right now, whether it's that unhoused person, whether it's that person who's addicted, whether it's that newcomer or that refugee, right? Because it's a very unique and different time right now than we've ever had before. And so if we're seeing, lower kind of, engagement with these things, it's for me, the question is, how do we heal as a community so that everyone heals together, as opposed to how do we just work with welcoming newcomers? Because I think we all need that assistance right now. I know I do. I took 3 months stress leave, like I took the summer off and I was just like, I can't, I just need to. And I slept, Tamara. Most of that 3 months, people said, oh, did you go out? Did you have fun? I'm like, no, I literally just slept 20 hours, a day sometimes because I was just exhausted because we stayed open throughout COVID and we were dealing with really critical cases, right? And I led the Calgary COVID response. I co-chaired it with one of our ministers in the provincial government, and so it was really a lot going on. So I needed to take that time off. So I can only imagine, and I have a lot of privilege. I have a lot of love in my life. I have a lot of compared to other people, I have money, right? I've got a job that's a good paying job that's coming in. I have colleagues that support me. I have a board that supports me. I have, community members. I have friends, like all of those things. I have a dog, and so I'm relatively privileged, and I still needed to shut down for 3 months, right? So what about people that can't afford to take off 3 months? And that's the majority of people.
It is the majority of people, and I appreciate you saying that because it is a very empathetic way of looking at empathy, because I think we do forget sometimes, and it has been a very trying time. I wanted to mention that we always ask our guests to choose a Canadian nonprofit so we can give a contribution or a donation to thank you or, our guests for being here. And you chose, this is shocking, you chose the Centre for Newcomers Society of Calgary. Thank goodness you chose them. But we're going to give a donation as a thank you for you being here. So I really do appreciate that, Anila. And, as we're wrapping up, 2024 is ahead of us, and it's a new year. And what do you hope for when it comes to, welcoming newcomers to Canada? What are some of your goals or your dreams for 2024 in the work that you do?
We're consistently in a funding crisis, right? We have more newcomers coming in, yet the government continues to cut funding across the board, right? For services for newcomers across the country. We know that people are in such dire situations that donations are down to a lot of our charity partners that we work with, right? Whether that is, like I said, like a homeless serving agency or addictions agency or the food bank, we work very closely with the food bank in Calgary, and they offer wonderful services and assist us a lot. Our Women in Need Society, like our thrift store that offers free services, we work so well with them in being able to support the community. And so for me, it would be around if people have $5 to donate or $1 to donate, choose your favorite charity and donate to that, right? It doesn't have to be the Centre for Newcomers. Anywhere. We all need the assistance, and it all helps because we all try to work together, right? But if you don't have that, and you're feeling isolated yourself, or you're feeling, the need that, things just really aren't good yourself, volunteer somewhere, especially with young people, especially at the YMCAs and like the Ys and the the Boys and Girls Clubs or the Big Brothers Big Sisters, any place. Like all of our newcomer agencies have like youth programs, like all of those different places, because I think the best way to ensure that if, knock on wood, something like this ever happens again, that we can offset that is if we take care of our young people, we take care of our children, right? We take care of our youth first. And I think, to me, spending time in my daycare here at the Centre for Newcomers is what heals me the most, right? Spending time with children, with their laughter, with their resiliency, with their just love of each other and of us and of humanity. And it just reminds you of why you do any of this, like why you wake up in the morning, regardless of whether you work in social services or not, right? To me, kids are always the best way to do that. And so that's my hope for 2024, is that where people can give where they can. And I really do 100% believe that the act of giving is healing.
Yeah, so true. Oh, wise words. Thank you so much, Anila. It's been great. Thank you so much. Learned a lot from you. And I really appreciate the work that you do. And you can find Anila on Twitter, X. One day I'll call it X and just leave it at that. But your handle is at Anila in YYC. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time on this.
Thank you so much, Tamara. And I so appreciate the donation to the Centre for Newcomers. It will go a really long way in helping very vulnerable people. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.